You wake up on a Tuesday morning, not because an alarm went off, not because your boss has a 9 a.m. meeting that you cannot miss. You wake up because you are done sleeping. You reach for your phone, not to check emails, not to see if your shift has changed. You check your portfolio, a position you built 6 weeks ago, a thesis you modeled, tested, revised, and believed in. It's moving in the direction you predicted. And the only question on your mind right now is not, will I make rent? The question is, can I move the decision meeting from Thursday to Wednesday? That is not fantasy. That is a specific kind of life that a specific kind of financial decision-making makes possible. And today, I am going to walk you through exactly what that path looks like. Not the Instagram version, the real one. Hi, you can call me Miss Money, and I spend way too much time thinking about what financial independence actually costs you before it pays you back. If you're someone who is working hard, doing everything you are told to do, and still feeling like you are useful to everyone except yourself, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Let's get into it. Here's the thing. Most people think financial independence is a number. They think, if I just had $X, I would be free. And that is the first mistake, because financial independence is not a number. It is a structure. It is a set of decisions, habits, and frameworks that you build over time, and at some point, the structure starts paying you instead of the other way around. The number is just proof that the structure worked. But here is what most people don't realize. The psychological cost of getting there is just as real as the financial one. And nobody talks about that part. We're going to talk about both today. Let me start with something that will make a lot of you uncomfortable. According to a 2023 Federal Reserve report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, 37% of adults in the United States said they could not cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. $400, not $4,000. $400. And these are not people who are not trying. These are people who are working full-time jobs, paying taxes, doing what they were supposed to do. The system is not broken. The system is working exactly as designed. It is designed to keep you productive and dependent at the same time. And the only way out is to stop playing the game by the rules that were handed to you. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. There is a concept in behavioral economics called the hedonic treadmill. The idea is simple. When your income goes up, your expectations go up with it. You earn more, you spend more, you feel roughly the same. The treadmill keeps moving. You keep running. The finish line keeps receding. This is why people earning $200,000 a year feel broke. Not because they are financially illiterate, because nobody ever taught them to distinguish between earning money and building structures that generate money while you sleep. Let me give you a real math example. Say you are earning $5,000 a month. After rent, food, transportation, subscriptions, and the occasional dinner out, most people are left with maybe $300 to $500. Maybe. Now, if you put $300 a month into an index fund averaging 8% annual returns, which is a conservative estimate based on S&P 500 historical averages, after 30 years you have approximately $440,000. That is not nothing. But here's the problem. Most people never start. And here is the psychological reason why. The amount feels too small to matter. $300 feels like it is not serious money. So they spend it. They reason, what is $300 going to do for me? And they are right that $300 today changes nothing. What they are missing is that the decision to deploy $300 consistently is not a financial decision. It is an identity decision. It is the moment you decide you are the kind of person who builds structures, not just earns wages. That decision, made early, is worth more than the $300. Now, let me walk you through a story. Not a hypothetical. A composite of exactly the kind of trajectory that financial independence actually looks like in real life. Imagine someone, let's call them the analyst. Early career. Smart. Hardworking. At 29, they are sitting at a desk at 6:47 in the morning, before anyone else arrives. They have built 30, one of the 43 analytical models their entire team runs off of. They know every cell, every formula, every risk, and they're going nowhere. Here is the thing about that situation that nobody in a finance textbook will ever tell you. Competence on its own does not compound. You can be the most capable person in the room and still be replaceable. Because the people who built the room do not care about your capability. They care about their continuity. They need you functional, not exceptional. They need you to be what the analyst described perfectly, a gear. A precision gear, clean and well-maintained, but a gear nonetheless. Part of a machine that does not know your name. Does that sound familiar? Comment gear in the comment section if you have ever felt like your skills were worth more than your title was paying you. Now here is where it gets really interesting, and this is the part nobody tells you. The analyst does not escape by climbing the ladder. They escape by becoming illegible to the ladder. What does that mean? It means they develop such a specific, differentiated insight, in this case a footnote about duration mismatch in mid-cap pension allocations that nobody else bothered to read, that the market comes to them, not their firm. Financial independence begins the moment your value becomes portable. The moment what you know, what you can do, or what you own cannot be taken away, when someone else decides to restructure the department. This is the first principle. Your value must be portable before your income can be passive. Look, I know what some of you are thinking right now. Miss Money, that is a great story for someone in finance. What about the rest of us?
Fair.
Let me address that directly. The analyst story is a specific context, but the principle is universal. Portable value looks different in different fields. For a designer, it is a portfolio and client relationships that follow you. For a teacher, it is an online course that earns while you sleep. For a software developer, it is open source contributions or a SaaS tool you built on weekends. For a content creator, it is an audience that belongs to you, not to your employer's Instagram account. The question is never, am I in the right industry? The question is, am I building something that belongs to me, or am I only building things that belong to someone else? And most people, for most of their careers, are building things that belong to someone else. That is the trap. And it is comfortable, which is what makes it dangerous. Let me talk about the math of carried interest for a minute, because this is something that applies beyond hedge funds and private equity. The concept is what matters. In investment management, carried interest means your compensation is directly linked to the performance of the decisions you make. If the fund performs, you perform. If it does not, you do not. It aligns your incentives with outcomes. Now contrast that with a salary. A salary rewards presence. It rewards consistency. It does not, structurally, reward exceptional decisions. You can make your company $10 million this year and get a 4% raise. That is not a knock on your employer necessarily. It is just how the structure works. Here is the financial implication of that difference over time. If your compensation is capped by a salary structure, your wealth-building potential is fundamentally limited by the number of hours you can work. There are only 24 hours in a day. At some point, you hit the ceiling. If your compensation has equity, commissions, profit sharing, ownership, or any kind of carried interest structure, your ceiling is moved. Not removed, moved. And that distinction matters enormously. According to research by economist Thomas Piketty, the return on capital historically outpaces the return on labor over long periods. What that means in plain English is this. Owning things tends to build wealth faster than working for things. Not always. Not immediately. But structurally, over time, ownership compounds in ways that wages do not. So, one of the most important financial decisions you can make is not which stock to buy. It is what percentage of your income is coming from ownership versus labor. And then, deliberately, intentionally, every year, to try to shift that percentage. Let me say something that might be slightly uncomfortable here. The shift does not happen fast. And the expectation that it should is the thing that kills most people's financial progress. I see this constantly. Someone reads about financial independence, they get motivated, they make a plan, they start. And then 3 months in, the number in their investment account is $1,400 and they think, this is not working. And they stop. Here is what most people don't realize about the compound growth curve. It is not a straight line. For the first several years, it looks almost flat. The first $10,000 took you 2 years to build. The next $10,000 took 18 months. Then 12. Then 6. Then suddenly you are generating your own monthly returns that dwarf what you were adding manually. This is called the J-curve. And every person who has ever built real wealth has had to sit in the flat part of that J and trust the math. The psychological challenge of that period, by the way, is real. Behavioral economists call it hyperbolic discounting. Our brains are literally wired to value a reward today much more than the same reward in the future, which means you are fighting your own neurological architecture when you choose to invest rather than spend. The only thing that wins that fight is not willpower. It is automation. Remove the decision from your daily consciousness. Set up an automatic transfer the day after you get paid. Pay your future self first before your brain gets involved in the conversation. This is not a new idea, but it is the most consistently effective one. Now let me talk about something the financial content world completely ignores: the social cost of building wealth. Here's the thing about the analyst's story that hit me when I first heard it. By the time they reached a point of real financial autonomy, their social world had contracted. The old friendships were not broken. They were just, as the story put it, no longer load-bearing. They attended a wedding and spent 6 minutes mentally calculating macroeconomic trends before catching themselves. That sounds funny, but it is real. And it happens earlier than you think. As your financial sophistication grows, the gap between how you see money and how most people around you see money widens. Most people in your life are operating on the hedonic treadmill. They are spending to feel, consuming to cope, financing things that depreciate before the credit card bill arrives. And you will find yourself, more and more, unable to unsee what you see. This is not a reason not to pursue financial independence. It is something to anticipate so that you can manage it with grace. Keep the old friendships even when they're not load-bearing. Stay connected to people who are not obsessed with capital. It makes you better at judgment, not worse. The analyst kept a private notebook, a behavioral map of the decisions they saw happening around them, not for leverage but for discipline, for pattern recognition. That habit, tracking the conditions that produce errors, not just the errors themselves, is one of the most underrated financial tools in existence. You can do this with your own spending. Do not just track what you spent. Track why. What emotional state preceded the purchase? Stress? Boredom? Social pressure? The pattern beneath the pattern is where the real money is hiding. Let's talk about the ethical edges of financial decision-making, because I think this is a conversation that financial education needs to have more honestly. As your financial life becomes more complex, you will encounter situations where the legally permissible thing and the right thing are not the same sentence. Where information lands in your lap that technically advantages you, but is not yours to use. Where a relationship or a dinner or an offhand comment shifts your probability distribution in ways that feel useful and unclean at the same time. Here is what the analysts did in those moments. They documented the fact that they did not act. Date, decision, reason. One entry at a time. That documentation practice is not just ethical. It is strategic. In any industry where trust is currency, a clean record is compounding asset. Every decision you make that you would be comfortable defending in a room full of scrutiny is a deposit into a reputational account. And that account pays dividends that your brokerage account cannot. Your integrity in the long run is a financial instrument. Treat it accordingly. Now, here is something I want to address directly because I know at least some of you are watching this and thinking it. Miss Money. This is inspiring, but I am not a hedge fund analyst in Mayfair. I have student loans and a car payment, and my income is irregular, and I do not see how any of this applies to me. I hear you, and I want to be straight with you. The principles here are scalable. The math does not care about the size of the numbers. It cares about the consistency of the behavior.
But I also want to be honest with you about something.
Financial independence does not feel romantic when you are in the middle of building it. It feels like saying no. A lot. It feels like watching your friends book holidays that you have decided not to take yet. It feels like holding your ground in a culture that constantly tells you to spend your feelings away. The reason most people do not reach financial independence is not that they lack information. There is more free financial information available today than at any point in human history. The reason is that the discomfort of the building phase is underestimated. So here is what I want you to take from this video today. 3 things you can do this week, not someday, this week. First, calculate your coverage ratio. Take your current savings and investments. Divide that number by your monthly essential expenses. This tells you how many months you could survive without any income. If the answer is less than 3, that is your first project. Get to 3 months, then 6, then 12. Second, identify your one portable skill. What can you do that has value outside of your current employer? What is the footnote in your work that only you noticed? If you cannot answer that question, you are 100% dependent on someone else's decision about your worth. That is the single most dangerous financial position you can be in. Third, find your equivalent of the notebook, the private record. Start tracking not just what you earn and spend, but the conditions under which you make financial decisions. You will start to see your own patterns within 30 days. And patterns, once visible, can be changed. Here is the last thing I want you to sit with. In the story of the analyst, there's a moment, years into managing billions, when they sit alone in a quiet office and the thought arrives. They could stop. The number in their account means the game is optional. They do not stop. And for a while that might seem like the punchline is missing. Like all that work was supposed to lead to freedom, and now they are still sitting at the desk. But here is what I think that moment is actually about. Financial independence does not free you from work. It frees you from compulsion. There is a difference so large between those two things that most people never understand it until they feel it. When work is optional, the choice to work becomes meaningful. You are not there because you have to be. You are there because the problem is interesting and the thesis is forming and the model is 6 weeks old and still getting sharper, and the window opens in approximately 90 days, and it is narrow, and it will not stay open long. That is not a job. That is a calling. And the only way to know the difference is to first build the structure that makes the choice genuinely yours. The market does not care about your story. It moves regardless. Someone is always on the other side of your trade, equally confident, equally prepared. The outcome floats between you, unassigned, patient. One of you will be right. And which one you are will have more to do with the decisions you made 5 years before this moment than the ones you make in it. Build early. Build quietly. Build with patience for the J-curve. Build with your integrity intact. And understand this. You are not building wealth. You are building the architecture that will eventually allow you to become something more than the role on your badge. The badge is not the destination. It never was. Comment architecture in the comment section if you are building something right now, even if nobody around you can see it yet. I'm Miss Money, and I'll see you in the next one.